In addition to the Bible talking about the return of Apollo, you have structures of prominent buildings all throughout history telling the same story of Osiris/Apollo/Nimrod, because they're the same person, and who still perform rituals awaiting the reemergence of this deity for this day. Take, for example, the Vatican. The Vatican is designed after a diagram based on the history and cult of Osiris, Isis, and Horus, including the magical utilities meant to generate the deity's return. Coincidentally, Washington, D.C. is designed the exact same way. The design concept's purpose is for regeneration, resurrection, for deity incarnation from the underworld to Earth's surface through union of prominent figures. So this means these objects, located in the Vatican and Washington, are set up to resurrect this ancient deity Apollo, Osiris, and Nimrod. The dome, which is the ancient structural representation of the womb of Isis, and the obelisk, the ancient representation of the male organ of Osiris. The story of Osiris and Isis gives us background as to how this ancient tradition started. The short version of the story goes like this. Osiris's brother was jealous of him and killed him. He then dispersed of Osiris's body in pieces, which were then found by Isis. She put all the pieces back together, but she couldn't find his male organ. So she made one herself and supposedly impregnated herself with the help of the sun god Ra, and had Horus, which she told the people was the reincarnated version of Osiris himself. Thus the tradition of male organ or obelisk facing the dome, symbolizing the coming resurrection of a pagan savior. Essentially, the end times would be a marriage between political and religious authorities at the return of Osiris and Apollo. This has led open-minded researchers to carefully consider the hidden prophecies in these buildings. For example, Thomas Jefferson, who shepherded this Roman design for America and Washington, D.C., wrote to the Capitol's architect at the time, Benjamin Latrobe, defining it as, quote, the first temple dedicated to embellishing with Athenian taste the course of a nation looking far beyond the range of Athenian destinies. The Athenian Empire was first known as Osiria, the kingdom of Osiris. In addition, Manly P. Hall wrote in The Secret Teachings of All Ages, quote, the dying god, Osiris, shall rise again. The secret room in the house of the hidden places shall be rediscovered. The pyramid again shall stand as the ideal emblem of resurrection and regeneration, end quote. This legend was used all throughout history for pharaohs, kings, and influential leaders, where rituals were performed to raise the spirit of Osiris into that king or that pharaoh at that time. When they died, they went to be with Osiris, and their son or their predecessor became the reincarnation of Horus, and so on and so forth. Some speculate that this tradition has not changed, and that in modern times these rituals still take place today for every president. Some even speculate that in Ezekiel chapter 8, the children of Israel set up an obelisk, which would be known as the image of jealousy, in verse 5 of Ezekiel chapter 8, which faces the dome, or faces the entry of the temple, just as the dome faces the obelisk in Washington, D.C., in the Vatican City. And in the same chapter, they were condemned by God for worshiping the sun, who is Ra, while weeping for Osiris, which is Tammuz. This is just one structure and building we've discussed here. What of the countless drawings and paintings and other building structures throughout Washington, D.C. and the entire world? For example, in Washington, D.C., if you're told that you were in America, one might think you were actually in ancient Rome, and it's supposed to be that way.